As you know, we are in the great corporate takeover, are we not? Everything has to be done by a corporation. We get letters all the time from corporations, and every small individual person who's working away, beavering in his little workshop, no matter what they're doing, maybe making unicorn poo, who knows, the companies, these big corporate entities, so, we must have that, and they swoop down with their big talons, they buy up these small little individual businesses and put them as one of their own companies, and so they have a great swathe of companies and it's all swallowed up into the big corporate takeover. We know that, for example, the councils now are corporations registered on Dun & Bradstreet. We know the police is registered on Dun & Bradstreet. We know that all the courts are businesses registered on Dun & Bradstreet, and the government itself. No longer is there a sort of a public authority that's run by the people for the people, and yet, of course, it is the people that actually really exist. These corporations are all dead entities. They're just bits of paper. They're concepts. They don't really exist in the world, only in people's minds, and yet they seem to have all the power and everything. And the thing is, whenever you get a letter from them, you never get a signature, do you, anymore? Nobody is in the business. It's almost like it's a ghost business, as if nobody actually works there anymore, because nobody will put a wet ink signature on a bit of paper when they're asking you to do something or answer a query or any of those sort of things, and you wonder, I've got this letter and it says blah, 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 and it just signs off as whatever the name of the company is, the company. And it's like, oh, so has it got any authority at all in any shape or form, because there's nobody holding that company liable or is representing that company with their signature? I wouldn't have thought so. Anyway, because of all of this, I think that we need to do something about it. I think that we can't live in a world in which men and women, real living, breathing men and women who gulp in great lungfuls of air and have blood pumping round their body, those sort of people, you know, the ones that we like to interact with each other. We don't want to interact with dead entities and have the whole thing taken over by the corporate takeover. Of course we don't. So in order to sort of push back against all this nonsense and force people to be there as a representative, actually sign, I think we should waste their time. Waste their time as much as is possible. After all, the government at the moment are trying to say, oh, you've got to register all your chickens, aren't they? Apparently, if you have a single chicken, you've got to register it. Oh, we'll tell you what you've got to do. You've got to register this chicken and you've got to have it come hell or high water. Every bird has got to be registered. So I gather that people actually have been doing this, and they have been wasting their time. They've been looking out the window and going, oh, there's a couple of pigeons on my lawn. Better register those. And suddenly there's a couple of pigeons, Harold and John. There we are, registered. Oh, no, actually, they've just flown off. Can you, dear sir, could you deregister Harold and John? Because they've actually now no longer, they've left the premises and they've gone. I think we should waste these corporations' time in the way that they are taking over our lives and dominating everything we do. Send them letters about things. Not the nice companies. If there's nice companies, obviously don't waste their time. But these big corporations who are pretending to be public authorities, for example, and ask them. But the key thing is, every time they send you a letter, every time they send, and it just says the name of the company on there, before you can deal with whatever their request is or their demand, maybe it's a council tax and there's this sort of stuff, say, excuse me, who am I actually talking to? Who in this big corporation is responsible for this? I need a name. I can't do anything. I can't move forward unless I actually have a name, a named individual, a real individual, not an AI individual, not somebody that's just made up on the spare of, because after all, how do we know that anybody exists in these companies, what with AI and all that going on, and they're spewing out this stuff. So waste their time, engage them in long conversations, but by letter. By letter, make them spend some of their money on postage stamps. They probably get it for free anyway, no doubt, these companies. But I try to engage them with, and say, excuse me, I don't really understand what this is about. Also challenge them on their English, because very often they're using capitals and capital letters. or they'll say, you've got to do that. Well, who is the you that you're talking to? This is me. You could obviously challenge them on the legal fiction. We know that, and say, well, I don't know who that person is. Who is that person? Who are you talking to? This capitalised thing. You know, capital letters is really just letters for an anachronism. What is that anachronism that spells RICHARDVOBES? I don't know that anachronism. I know VOBES is very old British entertainment service, but the RICHARD, I've yet to work out that bit. So could you tell me what that is? According to the Chicago layout of style, whatever the manual is, the manual of style, I think it is, which is the legal way of setting out documents. So if it's in capital letters, it's really just gobbledygook. It's hieroglyphics. It's not really real letters. But we should waste their time in all sorts of different ways, these companies that are trying to extract money and make our lives as miserable as anything and take over everywhere. Waste their time as much as you can. There was a book, and I did look on my shelf, and I can't find it. There was a gentleman who would just write and ask all sorts of questions about bits and pieces. It made hilarious entertainment. But try and sort of, you know, humour people, get humour out of them, make them laugh and smile and say, I don't really understand, I don't know what this is. Could you be a bit more specific? Make them work for their money. These people are just coming over and trying to take over our lives in a big corporate way and make us into debt slaves. We should waste their time as much as they're physically possible and remind them in some way, remind them by doing so that the people who operate these corporations, they are real flesh and blood people too, you know, and if they're not careful, they too will be swallowed up by the system.